Let's begin yet another exciting manwood journey filled with actions and development. If hell does indeed exist, then this place would be how it will look like. Countless of corpses paint the landscape, and the whole environment is engulfed in flames. We see our hero absolutely horrified as he looks at something. His pupil shrunk from surprise. It was the moment where the knight, whose name was revealed to be Kiri, shielded him from the arrows that would have killed him. The knight bid his highness, Bern, one last time, and greeted death with a smile on his face. The loyal soldier falls to his majesty, and apologizes for reaching his limit. But that doesn't matter to Bern, he is more concerned about the knight's condition. Kiri adds that this ultimate sacrifice is all he can do to at least repay Bern for everything. His majesty's expression, however, tells us that he doesn't care about any debts to be repaid or anything. The face he was making is of someone who is pleading for the knight to not leave him alone. He was about to say something to his loyal soldier, but Kiri cuts him off since there is no time. He gives him a sword, and asks his majesty to lift his blade once again. And with that, the valiant knight breathes his last breath, leaving Bern in a state of despair and shock. He lowers his head for a moment, contemplating on how could this ever happen. While gritting his teeth really hard, he tries his best to control his emotions. Slowly regaining his resolve, the hand holding the sword begun to emit a white aura, indicating that his majesty is gradually gathering up his will to fight again. And in the fit of rage, he screams at the top of his lungs, releasing a very powerful energy around him. Even the soldiers in the background who are busy fighting their own skirmishes, stopped when they felt Bern's energy. We get a brief description of the country that our hero is fighting against, Kyrus, the nation set up by dragons and humans. Kyrus asked for the treasure named the Axis of Time, that our hero's homeland, Secretia, had in her possession. I'm guessing that they refused to give such treasure, which evidently resulted in this mess. His Highness, Bern, charged forward right into the enemy line, with the only goal of taking them all down. Of course, the enemies fell one by one. With every swing of his sword, a new soldier falls down, giving us a hint of his incredible swordsmanship. Everything was going good so far with his reckless charge, until the mages began to launch their attack. It was from our hero's blind spot, and he was too late to notice it. The spell managed to hit the arm of our hero, cutting off his hand like butter. His country's refusal to hand over the treasure was the beginning of his homeland's last war. Despite losing an arm, Bern did not give in to despair, and continues to hack and slash his enemies using his other hand. Eventually, enemy soldier became cautious in their approach to minimize their loss brought by this lone dead man. Bern Secretia is the king of the country of Secretia, and as the ruler of the said nation, he will breathe every last breath, and pour every last drop of blood he has for his beloved land. Seeing that there is only one enemy left, the army of Kyrus started to focus all their might towards Bern, and started chanting a massive spell. Several magic circles appeared out of thin air, and from them came out powerful fire magic, that looked like the breath from a dragon. And in the center of the coordinated attacks, is none other than our hero, Bern. He knows that his struggle is futile, and it is too late to save anything. His impending death is also nearing as well. Regardless, he can't let something like this stop his footsteps. As the king and also the last survivor of the Secretia kingdom, he has the responsibility to shoulder all the hopes and will of those who went ahead of him. He braces himself for impact, as the cluster of fireballs descends upon him. The sheer size of the spell is overwhelming. It is no exaggeration to say that it must be 10 times the size of our hero. Bern fearlessly faced the giant fireball, slashing it in half, and showing the whole world why he is called the Blade of Secretia. It was a truly magnificent display of skill. As the commotion briefly dies down with the disappearance of the fireball, cluster of footsteps were heard on the blood-drenched land. Silence and immense pressure envelop the atmosphere, as one certain individual arrives along with his lackeys. Our hero looks at them, and they are revealed to be the magician corps of Kyrus, the Vakan. Their faces are covered with white cloths, and their body is cloaked with white and golden robe. Among them, is the person who started all this bloodbath, Kyrus' crazy king, Planche. Our hero grits his teeth as he watches the arrival of the man who made his motherland into living hell. One mage stepped forward, greeting our hero, and introducing himself as the commander of Vakan, Arson. Before everything, like a true well-mannered person in a duel, Arson asks our hero for his name, but the king says that he has forgotten all. As of this moment, his whole existence and purpose is to be the blade that serves this land. While he was still muttering those words, he launches himself for a quick attack to his opponent, aiming to end this swiftly, just like he did with the other soldiers. But the mage grins under the cloth on his face, as if he was waiting for this exact moment. He tells our hero that he will remember him, all while preparing his spell to counterattack. Magical ice crystals began to form out of thin air, emitting a white-purple aura around it. And as soon as the crystals formed to his liking, he launched it to our hero without delay, while Bern was still trying to close that gap. It was a clean hit. The impact was so strong that the ice crystals exploded as it made contact with our hero. And just like that, the last hero of Secretia Kingdom falls at last. In that moment, with his eyes blurred with tears, Bern saw everything. His entire life flashing back before him in a split second. The sight of his rise and the fall of his motherland, which he loved so dearly. In that moment, all light disappeared along with his life. The war has ended, and the kingdom of Secretia is no more. The scene switches to an unfamiliar window, in a nice calm morning, with a voice waking up a certain prince. Our hero opens his eyes, and he was greeted by lovely attendants, politely waking him up with a golden bell. He gets up, and he was informed by one of the maids to hurry up for Prince Planche has already left. He was immediately taken aback after hearing the name. If you still remember, not too long ago, it was revealed that the exact same prince was the cause of our hero's homeland's annihilation. He immediately checks his severed arm, and was shocked to see that it was still there. Of course, hearing him say that his arm was cut off alerted the maids. With a concerned look on their faces, they ask why would His Highness say such a horrible thing. The other attendants are perplexed by the commotion as well, pondering if His Highness is having a really bad dream to think that his arm was cut off. Our hero started to become agitated. He screams in pain and confusion on what is happening. One moment he was fighting an impossible battle, then the next thing he sees are unfamiliar people attending to him. On top of that, they casually mention the name of the one person he absolutely loathes to his core, Planche. He contemplates on what is happening. His arm has reappeared, and he is being served by attendants he has never seen before. Furthermore, memories that aren't his are filling up his brain. Out of absolute confusion, he has no choice but to ask, right now, who is he exactly? The attendants who have been serving him, or to be exact, the owner of the memories, are bewildered by their master's actions. With a concerned expression on her face, one of the maids informs him that he is none other than Kalian Rain Kairos, the third prince of Kairos. This shocking truth bomb dawns upon our hero, and he contemplates if this is just a very horrific nightmare that he is experiencing. His whole body trembled as he hears the word, Kairos. I mean, who wouldn't? Just a few moments ago, he was fighting against the people of that kingdom, and the last thing he saw before dying is the sight of Kairos mages looking down on him. Contemplating about the situation, our hero couldn't help but ask, what the hell is going on? Then, he remembers something more important. He became jumpy and asks the attendant what date is today, and the attendant immediately replies that it is currently the 28th of April. Our hero is still not satisfied. He then asks what year it is, and was answered that it is the year 522. Confused and worried, they ask the prince if there is something wrong. But the person who is more confused is our hero. He sweats as he says that this situation is impossible. The year 522 is the year, decades before the last war. He stops moving for a while to collect his thoughts. His appearance has totally changed, and his once long white hair and eyebrows are now black. The war between Secretia and Kairos started with what was known as the axis of time. It is a strange object that possessed the power to turn back time. A mysterious item that suddenly appeared in the royal palace of Secretia. Word spread quickly, and the continent's ruler, Kairos, began to covet the axis of time as well. The nobles and royalties of the kingdom of Secretia found it utterly unacceptable for them to surrender the axis of time to the Kairos. The kingdom might have been a great force, but the item clearly belonged to them. They deemed it dangerous to hand over such a dangerous object to an enemy nation. And so, the kingdom of Secretia decided to reject Kairos' request at once. Immediately, the kingdom of Kairos waged war against them, as if they had been waiting for such an opportunity. As a member of the defending kingdom, Bern had no choice but to join the battle, even if his king disapproves. His Majesty, Chase, pleads our hero not to go to the battlefield, since everyone who went to the war has died, and he can't risk losing our hero as well. But being a loyal knight to his country through and through, they both know that there is no other choice. And so, Bern went on to fight a losing battle, where he lost and was eventually slain. All these tragic events were witnessed by Chase's eyes. His Majesty wished, from the bottom of his heart, to go back in time before the axis of time had appeared. Contemplating about the possibilities, a sudden realization hits our hero. He then remembers the very cause of the war, the axis of time, and thinks that it is no way it is possible. He jumps out of bed quickly to check something, worrying his attendants. In his mind, he wonders if Chase had used the axis of time to turn back the actual time of the world. What if, before his kingdom completely fell, Chase gave him one last chance to prevent the end of his motherland? The attendant, who has absolutely no idea what is going on with his master, says that he understands that it must be hard for our hero to participate in the breakfast gathering. But they cannot delay it any longer. Having collected his thoughts and reorganized his mind, Bern, who is now in the body of Kalian and treacherous, gets his act together and informs the attendants that he is now ready. If it's for the sake of making the best out of this opportunity, our hero will make sure to survive as a prince of Kairos. The majestic doors of the castle open, followed by the announcement of Kalian, the third prince, joining the breakfast gathering. Inside the extravagant room, a royalty is gathered around a long black table. His attendant apologizes to Kalian for not waking him up earlier. She didn't expect Prince Randall to arrive there before them. Randall Sale Kairos, the first prince of Kairos, elegantly sips his tea while he is waiting for his family members. It is revealed that there are 3 princes of Kairos, all half-brothers. Randall belongs to the bloodline of the holy state of Tencel, and by the king's orders, breakfast was prepared for the 3 princes every morning. But as per the memories of his new body, the first prince has always treated Kalian as if he didn't exist. Our hero greets Randall, but the prince just ignores him, as if he didn't hear anything. Our hero can't believe that he got ignored so blatantly, so he just takes his seat and sits down. He looks around the table, and he can't find the person responsible for his kingdom's demise. Suddenly, he arrives, followed by the introduction of the butler, saying that Planche, the second prince, shall have his meal now. Without a care in the world nor to his surroundings, the second prince immediately takes his seat in front of our hero. Bern, whom we will now call Kalian, was surprised by the prince's demeanor. He ponders what number of royalty in the world wanders around in such a state. We then see the notorious Planche in the flesh. He has sky-blue hair, sharp eyes, unruly behavior, and a physique that would make girls crazy. He questions if this is really the same person, known as the Mad King, Planche, that he knows from the past. He chuckles as he thinks that they must have meant mad in a different way, judging from the second prince's attire. He then proceeds to look at the first prince, who is currently minding his own business. If past memory doesn't fail him, he remembers that the first prince can't mess with the second prince. It is because of the fact that Kira's present queen is Planche's biological mother, and no one inside the royal palace would dare defy her authority. Realizing the great disadvantage that he has early on, our hero takes a sip of his tea while contemplating how he will survive in a place like this. While he was busy minding his own business, the notorious second prince turns his gaze towards our hero. He scolds him for being imprudent, which takes Kalian by surprise. Planche continues, saying that not a drop of decency is found in Kalian. After all, he takes after his mother. Our hero grits his teeth from the rude remark of the second prince. He really wants to burst from anger, but he must endure. He can't let the chance that Chase made for him go to waste. Even so, it is hard to stay calm. He keeps on feeling something rising up within him all the way to his throat. Planche ruined Kira's, the man who tore his homeland to pieces. From the bottom of his heart, he wants to slit his throat right this instant. The two lock gazes with each other, revealing the bad blood between them. The next thing we hear is the clang of the teacup breaking as it meets the floor, shattering the awkward silence between the two. Everyone in the room was shocked by sudden violent behavior of the second prince. He stares menacingly towards our hero, asking him how dare he glare at him like that. The rising tension was broken by the sound of a cup hitting the table. The eldest, Prince Randall, intervened between the two, telling them to stop. But even though the one who is making a ruckus is the second prince, Randall's stare is directed towards our hero, for he knows that he can't really go against Planche. Kalian on the other hand stood firm. He just stared right back at the first prince without breaking his poker face. Seeing that he is the only one affected by this commotion, Planche clicks his tongue and leaves the table. He states that he doesn't have an appetite anymore, for he can't stand the look of those disgusting blood-colored eyes that our hero's body possesses. The first prince stands up as well, scolding Kalian to watch his behavior. He informs him that His Majesty, the king's birthday is nearing soon, so this is no time to create such a ruckus close to the special day. Seeing how the blame shifts towards him when he clearly didn't do anything wrong, our hero can't help but scoff in disbelief. He can't believe that he is being framed as the aggressor when it was Planch who reacted violently, then left, leaving a sour atmosphere at the table. Kalian's attendant immediately asks if he is okay, and if he's hurt in any way. He kneels down and starts wiping off the stains that the spilled tea created on our hero's shoes, stating that not a day goes by without something happening between the siblings. Our hero takes comfort in the fact that there is at least a loyal servant who genuinely takes care of his new body. Despite witnessing the lowly treatment Kalian receives every day, the faithful attendant still shows genuine concern towards him. He puts his hand on the servant's shoulder, and expresses his gratitude for caring about him, taking the servant aback. You see, every time Kalian gets picked on by his siblings, the usual occurrence is that he will just silently cry his eyes out, but he is surprised to see his master smile after what just happened. We get a little background information about the dragon named Sisyphonian, who was the first queen of the kingdom of Kyrus. She had hair as dark as the night sky, and her eyes burned like a sacred flame. Kalian was the only prince to have inherited her exterior traits, but the powers he had were pitiful in comparison. Branded as a failure, Kalian would always try to hide his crimson-red eyes with his bangs, since Planch hates them so much. The cause of such obsessive behavior was none other than the second prince. Our hero can't help but feel a bit unpleasant because it feels like he is peeking into someone else's memories, but to always hide his eyes just because he was scared of someone like Planch. He can't resist calling the third prince an idiot. While standing outside of the palace to admire the view, the servant asks the prince if there is something he would like to do, but he says that there's nothing, and invites him to go back inside. Growing more curious about Kalian's weird behavior for today, he can't help but inquire if he perhaps read a novel about a knight last night that inspired him to be brave, which our hero denied. The third prince was born to a concubine of peasant roots. He was afraid of many things and did not have anyone to support him. He was a weak individual who did not even have the power to protect himself. As the two were heading back to the castle, our hero remembers something important. He nervously asks the attendant what is his current age, and the servant answers that he will turn 15 in 4 months, with a confused expression on his face. You see, the reason why this is an important information is because in the past, Kalian was assassinated right before his coming-of-age ceremony. He tried to poison Queen Celeste and failed, then, he hung himself out of fear of punishment. At least, that is what the public was told. In reality, no one believed that to be true. So, our hero is concerned that someone is going to come after him very soon. After realizing this, he hurriedly went back to his room. There is about a month or two before Kalian's death. When he doesn't know what happened to his original body, Bern, he can't just wait and do nothing. Right after arriving in his room, our hero asks the attendant for scissors. He was confused about His Majesty's request, but still delivered them nonetheless. Still, his curiosity gets ahead of him. He politely asks the prince what does he intend to do with it. Kalian just smiles and tells him that he will change things from now on, as he starts snipping away some portion of his hair. All the servants in the room were horrified. They are all aware that the notorious second prince hates the sight of his blood-red eyes. So, they are concerned about Kalian's decision to cut his hair. But our hero continues snipping anyway, saying that he can't live like an idiot forever just because Planch hates things about him. He smiles with his new hairstyle, and confidently declares that he will take care of things so they don't have to worry. I guess our boy is a talented barber, for he was able to cut his hair evenly without the help of a mirror. Then, tomorrow's breakfast gathering arrived, and Planch immediately noticed the change in our hero's appearance, asking him if he is out of his mind. Kalian just sat there smiling, as if he is not hearing any complaints from the second prince. Meanwhile, the servant is basically freaking out right now. He can't believe that this is what his master meant when he said that he will take care of things. The servant is baffled. He knows that this won't end well for Kalian, and his thinking was backed by the second prince angrily walking to the table. Planch takes his seat in an unruly manner, addressing our hero as the bloody-eyed bastard. But before he finishes his sentence, our hero cuts him off mid-sentence and corrects him, saying that his name is Kalian. Then proceeds to take a sip of water. He then repeats himself, with a smile. He provocatively asks his brother to call him by his name. In return, Planch answers back with a smile of his own as well, saying that his brother is indeed correct, all while grabbing a golden bread knife near him. Right before he finishes talking, he pitches the knife back in an attempt to throw it. The knife launches straight towards our hero's faithful attendant. But right before it hits the unguarded servant, Kalian catches the blade midair with his hand, causing it to bleed from the cut. Despite that, our hero remained calm and collected. He didn't even break his poker face while blood is dripping profusely from his injured palm. Planch acts like as if nothing happened, saying that his hand slipped, resulting in his dear brother being injured. Kalian just smiled through his provocation. He stood up and went to give back the bloodied utensil to his older brother. He says that it is fine and that there is nothing to worry about, all while smiling politely, taunting the second prince even more. As he drops the knife back, he claims that it was no big deal, whatever his brother was aiming for. The scene switches back to Kalian's room. Bandages and medicines are on the table, indicating that he is receiving first aid treatment. The worried servant insists on calling a healer to treat the wound, but our hero refuses to do so. He says that it is just a small cut, not something worthy to cause such a fuss. But the attendant, whose name is revealed to be Ian, so we'll call him that from now on, is adamant on getting it healed right away. Our hero changes the topic and asks why didn't Ian try to dodge the knife earlier. He knew that the attack was aimed towards him, and he is capable enough to dodge it. Our hero asks what would he have done if he hadn't blocked it. Ian replies that if he dodged the attack, Planch might use that as an excuse to harm Kalian. Our hero once again appreciates the servant's loyalty and dedication towards him. He smiles due to the fact that there is at least one person in the royal palace he could consider as an ally. He then teases Ian, saying that due to his inaction, he is now injured and his heart is pounding. He states that he might be able to calm down after a quick rinse of his face. The servant offers to assist him but he declines, saying that he doesn't want anyone to help him, and also instructs him to not call a healer while he is gone. Earlier, our hero was about to subconsciously use aura to intercept Planch's attack, but he felt a sudden pain in his heart. To investigate the situation further, he decides to reenact the situation and confirm Kalian's body's condition. Again, he tries to release mana, and he was greeted by a rather peculiar sensation. He found out that there are 3 mana circles in the vicinity of the body's heart. Bern was shocked to find out that Kalian was actually a magician pretending to be a failure. A few days have passed, and it was a nice and peaceful day. Well, except for Kalian's room, where he is feigning ignorance as Ian checks up on him. It has been 3 days and his injuries are showing no signs of recovery. The attendant scolds him for being too lax about it, but our hero insists that he is fine. Then, a rather circular individual in a red suit greets His Highness and informs him that the preparations are complete. His name is Seddon Slake. Slake introduces himself to Kalian, saying that he is the royal tailor, but he stops talking mid-sentence as he notices something. Our hero queries what shook the man, but Slake immediately apologizes. In a state of panic, he addresses Kalian as Freya, but was scolded instantly by the servant. The royal tailor is in even more of a panic now, as he desperately asks for the prince's forgiveness. Kalian, who suffered for a long time because he looked similar to the mother he had never met, started to hate looking at his face, to the point of getting rid of all the mirrors in his room. But our hero doesn't mind it one bit. He tells the tailor that he is aware that he looks like Freya, so just forget everything and start taking his measurement. The servant in the background won't let it pass though, he glares at the poor dude menacingly. While he was getting his measurement taken, Slake comments that His Highness should eat more for he is worried of how thin Kalian is. Our hero states that there is nothing to worry about, since he is eating properly. Kira's royal family are the descendants of dragons. To be exact, they are the descendants of 2 of the 8 heroes who sealed the evil god, Hachara and Sisfanian. Sisfanian gave the direct line of Kira's royalty. She also granted the lineage the blessing of the power of healing, and the ability to use magic. In other words, Kalian's injury should have healed a long time ago, yet it hasn't. Add that to the fact that every time our hero uses mana, he feels a pain in his heart. Our hero is getting concerned about the situation. At this rate, he won't be able to use aura or magic, and would just die when the assassin comes. The tailor has finished getting the measurements, and will now bring the clothes that he prepared. Slake is busy creating casual talk with His Majesty, but our hero's mind is wandering somewhere else. He is thinking if there is anyone knowledgeable about mana that he can talk to. Then, as he hears the tailor talk about the king's birthday, it hits him. Since it will be a grand event, a certain someone would be there as well. The great magician, Ellen Manisel, will be there for sure. Our hero states that he needs to meet him. Ellen Manisel, one of the only 3 or 4 people who are 7th circle magicians, and the idol of all magicians. In the past, Ellen was invited to the king's birthday and visited Kairos, but there are stories of how a certain incident led him to be refused at the door. He then reached the neighboring nation, Secretia. Maybe he couldn't participate in the festivities, but he was raised to an 8th circle great magician 10 years later, and was the only magician on the continent to achieve such a feat. There is no one like him when it comes to knowledge of mana, and our hero is sure that he will be able to help him with the problems on his body. It turns out, Kyrus doesn't treat magicians so well because of a certain incident that our hero is unaware of. Kalian contemplates if the Grand Magician will agree to his request. The reason that countless knights traverse Kyrus' kingdom is due to the influence of Planche's mother's family, the Bryson family. Even if it's just to keep Bryson's power in check, our hero needs the power of magicians. If he can bring Ellen onto his side, he might be able to stop the war that his brother will start. But before he deals with the future problems, he must first deal with the predicament that he is in right now. His attendants are debating about the suit that he would wear for the occasion. Well, I say suit, but it's more of a dress. They are even debating if they will add more lace to it. He scolds them, saying that he wants no ribbons nor frills. The scene switches to a nice relaxing morning where we find our hero casually sipping his tea inside his room. He is getting a little used to his new life now, and it seems like he is adapting very well. His hand has almost completely healed, and Planche has been outwardly ignoring him since, which is the best case he could hope for. Yin, the attendant, informs our hero about his schedule for today. Apparently, he has to take horseback riding lessons in the morning, and in the afternoon, he has dinner plans with the Queen and Viscount Bryson. He adds that he should think of it as a meeting for the king's birthday plans. Kalian sighs in defeat. Well, he is going to bump into them eventually, so it is better to do it sooner. While he was being dressed by one of the maids, Yin asks him if he will be training his stamina for today as well, showing concern in his eyes. Our hero tries to ease his worries, saying that it is just running in front of the lake beside the palace, so he doesn't have to worry too much. We are then taken to the beautiful scenery of the palace grounds, where we hear someone huffing and panting, desperately trying to catch their breath. It was our hero, who genuinely thinks he is going to die from exhaustion at this rate. He probably didn't think that Kalian's body would be this out of shape. He was approached by a short-haired beauty, Marilee Fiat, who also happens to be one of his maids. Marilee is the second daughter of the External Defense Commander, and expresses her worries about the state that His Highness is in. Normally, when someone is training their stamina, the first day would consist of 4.5 laps, but our hero is only at his third lap and already looking like he is about to die. Kalian is sure that there is something wrong. He is exercising, but his stamina is falling. Marilee offers to call a healer to check on his condition, but our hero refuses. If a healer went and checked up on him, the mana circles in his heart would be exposed right away. Even Yin, his close attendant, is unaware that Kalian is a magician. His whole life could be endangered if he acts recklessly and exposes his true nature. To convince the maid not to call a healer, he says that it won't help him anyway since it is his stamina that is falling and not his health. While the two are casually chatting, they hear shouts from a distance, commanding the knights to not look away from the blade. It seems that the knights have already begun training. They give their all to their exercise, wearing fully plated armor under the bask of the scorching sun. Our hero and the maid stop their stamina training to watch the soldiers go at it. The sight of newbies giving their all brought a smile to our hero, who was once a knight himself, and says that it reminds him of old times. The maid was shocked to learn that His Highness is interested in swordsmanship even though he has no talent with the sword. Marilee asks Kalian if he knows what kind of place the Pable Knight Corps is. With vigor, our hero says that he is indeed informed about them. They are the Royal Knight Corps, or to be exact, the Knight Corps are forces of the Bryson family, which keeps the king's power in check. Kalian is willing to go on about the topic, but he was interrupted mid-sentence by the Knight Commander. Pable, the Pable Knight Corps commander, asks them their identity and tells them that if they have no business here, they should hurry up and scram. With a menacing look on his face, the commander tells them that their gazes are bothering the knights in training. Marilee won't let such disrespectful remarks towards our hero slip though. She shouts at the knight to mind his behavior. But the commander remained unapologetic, and says that he thought he was just some kind of rat bastard secretly watching them. Kalian's facial expression remained calm throughout the encounter, but we know that Bern won't let this disrespect go unpunished. Behind his tranquil expression, he hides a terrifying smile of pure malice. Marilee continued arguing with the commander, stating how dare he comment such imprudent remarks toward the third prince. But Pable is adamant that he is not in the wrong and even states that the prince isn't even affected by his words. He can't be more wrong with his assumption though. In just a mere seconds after looking at Kalian, chills went through his spine from the intense murderous glare that our hero is giving him. From the memories of the original Kalian, the commander has been imprudent towards him ever since. There was even a time where he almost ran him through with his horse, and the prince just meekly apologized and cowered away. But this time, there is no hint of that weak and pathetic prince. All he sees and feels is the suffocating aura of the third prince, intensely glaring at him. Kalian started walking near the commander, while asking him what his sworn duty to the kingdom is. The knight commander is being overwhelmed by the immense pressure that our hero is donning upon him, and cold sweat started to fall from his face. Fortunately for him, his subordinates hear the commotions and ask their commander what is going on. As they walk up the stairs, they saw the third prince and immediately murmured to each other how much a bother Kalian is. Seeing his subordinates' attitude toward the third prince, the commander regains his composure and went back to treating him like trash. He tells him that he is currently busy to answer him, so he must insist the prince to leave. But Kalian is far from who he was before. He will not back down by the likes of this pathetic excuse for a knight. He repeats his question with authority, asking the knight what his duty is. Everyone present felt the chill in the air, especially so for the commander who is the subject of all this. And so, Pavel has no choice but to obey. He states that his duties are to strengthen the royal family's forces and to protect the royal family and the kingdom, all while acting like a proper soldier. Meanwhile, our hero is busy getting a branch off a tree, while agreeing with the soldier's words. Then, in an angry tone, he states that Pavel has just failed both of the duties he mentioned. The commander becomes agitated by the prince's remarks and asks him what does he mean by his words. While waving the stick like a sword, he comments that he failed to strengthen the royal family's forces, due to the fact that his training is such a mess. Right after he speaks, Kalian disappears out of thin air, leaving behind a gust of wind from where he was. He was too fast for anyone around to see what he did. The next thing that they realized is the third prince way up in the air, behind the knight commander. Pavel's instincts kicked in. From all the experience he had in countless of battles, he knew that if he fails to block this attack, he is surely going to die. He draws out his sword to block the wooden stick of the third prince. But Kalian is too strong. With just a mere branch, he is overpowering the blade of the so-called commander. And with a flick of his wrist, our hero sends Pavel's sword flying over a few meters away, shocking all the witnesses around. Kalian comments that he can't believe Pavel couldn't even predict the movements of someone like him, who hasn't held a sword even once, and shows his disappointment towards the knight. Pavel is basically trembling at this point. The overwhelming pressure, the fighting spirit, the absurd skill, all of these are not the things you would expect from the prince branded as a failure. Kalian continues his speech, stating that the protector of the royal kingdom calls a member of the royal family in a derogatory manner, and even went as far as hurting the prince by wielding a sword against him. The air around began to feel heavy, as our hero asks the knight if he should consider his actions as an act of treason. Pavel's complexion turned as white as a ghost. Is this really the prince that he knows of? Without a second of thought, the proud commander knelt to the ground in a hurry, addressing the prince in a proper manner, and stating that he wasn't in the right mind. He begs for his forgiveness, as he didn't intend to commit treason at all. His subordinates and merrily looked at the pitiful state of the commander, baffled on what exactly is going on. But this apology has no hint of sincerity. Under his bowed head, is a murderous intent towards the third prince for putting him in such humiliation. The next thing we see is the frowned expression of the adorable loyal servant, Yen. He angrily asks our hero how come he is holding a horse, if he just went to do some stamina training. Kalian explains that he picked it up along the way, and even informs the servant that the horse's name is Raven. This explanation confused Yen even more, like who the heck would be able to accidentally fetch a horse along the way. We get to see what happened after the commotion with Pavel settled down. Kalian spots a rampaging black stallion in a distance, giving the soldiers a hard time calming it down. One of the knights explains that it is the horse that Prince Planche failed to tame. He further elaborates that the stallion is quite ferocious and dangerous. And that is when our hero got the petty idea of stealing the horse from his rival. Hearing all this, Yen's soul almost left his body. He angrily asks our hero if it's really okay for him to bring Prince Planche's horse. Kalian says that he got the permission to do so, or to be exact, finders, keepers. But Yen is adamant on scolding our prince for his behavior. Suddenly, a sharp pain inflicts our boy's heart. He flinches from the agony, shocking the two attendants near him. As he thought, he pushed his body too much. It is better to avoid doing so in the future, since Kalian's body isn't trained at all. To dismiss their worries, our hero says that it isn't that big of a deal. He just had a good time playing around with someone after quite a while. He informs Yen that he will be late for dinner at this rate, and promptly orders him to get ready quick. The scene switches to the patio in the palace garden, where we see two individuals talking to each other. One comments that he heard that even worms writhe when stepped on. How fitting. He continues that even if someone like a certain person tries to writhe, one can't change their origins. It wouldn't be fun for him to just press and kill him, assuming that he is pertaining to Kalian. So this worked out, he says, indicating that he would just be observing for now. It seems like trouble would be coming towards our hero's way in the near future. Speaking of him, the panel transfers to our hero, who is giving out a tired smile and a dead eye. The reason is that he has reunited with his siblings, leading to their daily, somewhat awkward table gatherings. He takes a glance at the notorious second prince, but it seems like Planche isn't in the mood for an argument today. Kalian wonders why the usually violent prince is so low on energy. He contemplates if the queen and the Viscount Bryson being late is his fault. The fact that Planche can't control his expression at all indicates that he is still a child. Suddenly, a distinct fragrance catches the attention of everyone at the table. Kalian's eyes begin to widen as he watches the arrival of the important visitor. The true power behind Kira's kingdom, Cele's Bryson, the second queen, and Kira's current queen. After the previous queen passed away from illness, Cele's, who rose to that position, borrowed the power of her family, and seized control of the royal knight corps. The majority of the nobles also supported the Bryson family, so, each day, Celis's power grew. And on the other side of the coin, the powerless third prince, Kalian, becomes someone laughable even to a mere commander. The Viscount tells the queen that they will deal with Commander Pable later and provide adequate compensation, which the queen agrees. As she takes her seat gracefully, she orders the Viscount not to bother her with such minor things like the commotion with the Knight Commander in the future. Someone as powerful as her has no time paying attention to such trivial things. And while she was saying this, she glares menacingly towards our hero, who wears his poker face like usual. Celes addresses Kalian and says that he has grown so much as of late. The two stared at each other intensely, hiding their animosity. Our hero humbly denies the queen's words while gently grabbing his glass of wine. He tells her that he didn't grow much, but he will be sure to grow more in the future, followed by a taunting smile. Everyone at the table, Planche, Randell, and even the queen herself, were all taken aback with the third prince's amusing remark. Cutting the awkward and tense atmosphere, the Viscount says that he almost didn't recognize Kalian because of his hair. He adds that he should have cut off his hair much sooner for he has a nice face. The man is revealed to be Viscount Renan Bryson, Marquis Bryson's second son. He continues his monologue saying that the third prince will surely grow into a fine young man. But he was immediately cut off by the queen, irritated with his friendly demeanor towards the prince. The Viscount immediately panicked and changes the subject immediately. Meanwhile, our hero can't help but be surprised to know that the owner of the Bryson Emporium is such a slow-witted man. Of course, as an outsider, Bern has no idea on what is really going on inside the castle, but he laughs at the fact that things are truly according to the rumors that he heard before. Cela shifts her gaze towards his son. She asks him why he didn't inform her immediately about what happened earlier, but the prince feigned ignorance and asks what is she talking about. The queen clarifies that she is talking about his horse that he failed to tame. Planche looks at her for a while, contemplating on what is he supposed to reason out. But he looks away and his face turns sour, realizing that there is no escaping his mother's grasp. Celes calmly informs him that it would have been nice if he had told her ahead of time, but Planche replies that there was no need, since she is already aware. The queen continues to press the issue that Planche is not willing to discuss. She emphasizes on how the prince forgot to tell her about the horse that completely left his grasp. Planche had heard enough. He drops his utensil and says that the horse was useless to begin with, and with those words, he stands up and says that he will now be taking his leave. This unruly behavior invoked the wrath of the queen, but she can't just cause a commotion all of a sudden. Fast forward to 3 weeks later, it is the annual king's birthday celebration. The city is buzzing with life, and the joyful and festive atmosphere enveloped the kingdom. Countless carriages arrived in the kingdom, some of which are congratulatory delegations sent by the elves. The people can't help but be excited about the princes, and eagerly wait for their appearance. Meanwhile, inside Kalian's room, our hero is having his measurements finalized. Something troubling catches the attention of the tailor, prompting him to ask His Highness if he has been eating properly. Then the next thing Slake sees horrifies him to his bones. The third prince, Kalian, is bleeding profusely from his nose, and judging by his expression, Our hero has no idea what the hell is going on either. Crimson-red blood drips on the floor, coming directly from the nose of our hero, who is clearly horrified by the sight of it. Of course, all of his attendants present in the room are worried sick as well, and immediately rush to his side to check what is wrong with his master. Despite Kalian telling them that it is fine, the whole room is still in a state of panic. Anne commands the maids to get His Highness some fresh clothes to wipe off the blood, while Slake is basically crying at this point. The bleeding stopped after some time, and Kalian informs them that it is no big deal, he hasn't just been able to sleep properly lately. His attendant won't buy such nonsense though, he is adamant on getting our hero treated. The royal tailor intervenes and respectfully refutes His Highness' words, stating that this matter shouldn't be ignored. He says that Kalian has lost too much weight within the past 3 weeks. As someone who has been constantly taking the prince's measurement, Slake is more than qualified to say such comment. Besides, you can really tell that his clothes have started to become loose. Our hero turns silent for a moment, he wants to hide this condition of his, but it seems that it is proving to be difficult to do so. To ease up the tension, Kalian plays innocent and says that his condition is most likely the cause of getting overworked from too much exercise. It is not totally a lie though, he was indeed working really hard these past few weeks, but his stamina didn't improve at all, rather, it kept on getting worse. And seeing how the pain in his chest when he uses mana is still there, he can't help but think that there must be some problem with Kalian's heart. The royal tailor won't buy our hero's brave facade. So, concerned by His Highness' well-being, he prompts him to have himself checked up. But the hard-headed prince insists that it isn't that terrible to warrant such fuss. Our hero is running out of excuses to ease his attendants' worries, but I can't really blame them either. A royalty's well-being is of utmost priority, and to see the prince in such a condition would truly put them on edge. Fortunately, Yen comes to the rescue. He scolds our hero for picking his nose too hard yesterday, which caused it to bruise up and bleed. In case you can't tell, this is an obvious lie. To make it more convincing, the servant claims that he understands that it is hard to admit such weird personal hobbies in front of a lot of people, but he has no choice but to come clean so they won't worry too much. Everyone in the room, Kalian included, was shocked by Yen's claims. They didn't know that the third prince liked picking his nose so goddamn much. He comes between our hero and the worried tailor, saying that Prince Kalian is undoubtedly eating and exercising well. The nosebleed he had must have been caused by his weird fixation on picking his nose, so there is no need to worry too much. Since those words came from the third prince's closest attendant, the tailor had no choice but to believe. Even though he was saved from being exposed, Kalian wasn't too happy with the method used, but Yen just smiled and winked at him, as if he is praising himself for his quick thinking. You see, Yen was the first one to notice the drastic decline in our hero's weight, and as such, he was the first one to inquire about it as well. Kalian, having absolute trust in him, revealed the truth about his use of mana and magic, and how his body is reacting negatively every time he does so. It is no doubt that he is grateful to Yen for saving his ass. Still, it doesn't change the fact that he ruined his image in an instant. With all the commotion settled, Slake states that he will now begin mending the clothes to fit our hero, but he worries that it might take some time to do so. The attendant says that there won't be problems regarding that, since the third prince has other matters to attend to before he goes to the event, so the tailor can focus on mending in the meantime. Hearing this, Slake happily takes his leave along with the materials he needs. On the other hand, Yen whispers something with the third prince. He secretly asks him to verify if the thing that he was waiting for is today, and Kalian simply nods to his question. At this rate, the condition of his health will be known throughout the whole palace, so, before that, Kalian intends to meet Ellen Manessel tonight at all costs. The scene switches to a butler apologizing, saying that due to the urgent business His Highness has to deal with, the prince's luncheon has been cancelled. Instead, the event will be replaced with meeting everyone one by one. Kalian was perplexed by the news. Clearly, this isn't going according to his plan. He is confused by the ironic contradiction of the butler's words. I mean, how come the king doesn't have time to meet together, but is able to greet them one by one? As they walk along the hallway, he contemplates how much more efficient it would be to meet everyone all at once. He didn't expect a private meeting, which makes him a bit nervous. Eventually, they reach a majestic pair of doors, while the butler signals them to come in. Kalian went inside, and his arrival was announced by the butler. Inside the room, a man is waiting for his arrival while reading some documents. It is none other than Roman Larun Kairos, the very king of the Kairos kingdom. He has black short hair that is neatly fixed, and eyes that are as blue as the ocean. The third prince respectfully greets His Majesty, showing proper etiquette. Some time has passed, and he still hears no response from the other party. When he looks up to check, the king is still reading the documents on the table, totally ignoring the presence of our hero. Our hero felt disrespected. Even if he is ignorant of Kyrus Kingdom's etiquette, he is well aware that what His Majesty is doing to him is rude. But before he does anything crazy, the king invites him to take his seat. While taking his seat, Kalian congratulates his father for his birthday. The king thanks him, and asks him how he's been doing. Without batting an eye to the third prince, His Majesty compliments him that he looks good. It is very apparent that the king has no interest in making deep conversation, and is just making small talk at this point. His father's comment takes Kalian aback. All the attendants have noticed his loss of weight, and how rapidly he has become emancipated. But his very own father didn't, and even went as far as saying that he looks good. Now, our hero knows why the king wants to meet them one by one, even though they don't have enough time. If he meets all the princes at once, the king will need to focus on making conversations. But with this setup, he could just blurt out anything that comes to his mind while still doing his work. The more he learns about them, Kalian can't help but think how fucked up this royal family is. Given his current attitude, it is no exaggeration to say that the king thinks that spending time with his sons to be congratulated for his birthday is a waste of time. Basing on our hero's analysis, Kira's royal family consists of the following list. A father who doesn't care about his sons. The first prince, who is indifferent to everything. A second prince who knows no etiquette. And a queen, who has enough power to look down on the king. Our hero can't help but be astonished about this absolutely fucked up situation. To top all of that, someone among these said people is trying to kill him as well. The royal family gathered in one place, looking all elegant and majestic. And among them is our hero, trying to identify who will give the order to assassinate him. The joyful celebration continues, and as members of the royal families, the princes were paraded to the masses. Gossips are running around on how the third prince appeared before the public, looking completely transformed and lively. While on the other hand, the second prince Planche looked completely drunk. The nobles can't get over their hunches that something is different, and that things don't feel the same way unlike the past. The panel switches to the grand ball area, where the third prince, Kalian Rain Karis' entrance was announced in the presence of the esteemed nobles. While he is making his way in, people aren't able to contain their shock and surprise with the appearance of our hero. The rumors turn to be true. Kalian, the third prince, really possesses black hair and red eyes that resemble Sasfanian. They also noticed how our hero cut his bangs that covered his face, and is also wearing a red brooch which suits his facial characteristics. This whole gesture sent a message to everyone around. All of them thought that this is a declaration from our hero, that he will no longer hide from the others. Kalian is liking the atmosphere in the air, because the third prince, who was always ignored and frowned upon, is finally getting attention and recognition for better or for worse. Meanwhile, his attendant, Yan, is oblivious to the reason why people are staring at our hero. He thinks that maybe his outfit has caught their attention. My guys is just elated that His Highness is attracting lots of attention with the outfit he helped him choose. So, for him not to get ahead of himself, Kalian had to set him straight. He says that they are probably thinking how bold he is right now for wearing such gems in this event. Had he not stopped his servants from getting carried away, things would have turned much worse. While the two were walking, our hero mentions that Yan's family resides in Kyrus as well. And in case it wasn't mentioned earlier, Kyrus city is the capital of the Kyrus kingdom. The servant informs him that his little sister and his father are back in their hometown, while the rest of his family is in the capital. Our hero asks him if they will come to the royal palace as well, and Yan states that they will definitely do, if they receive an invitation. Not wanting to pursue the topic any further, Yan switches subjects to our hero's steed, Raven. He asks if he'll be needing the horse on standby in the garden. Kalian is not insensitive enough to continue talking about a topic that the other party is uncomfortable of speaking, so he just answers his question, saying that he'll wait for the right timing. He informs him that there is someone he would like to see in the event. The servant blushes, assuming that the person is the prince's love interest. This particular grand ballroom is called the Siegfried Hall, and our hero asks his attendant if he knows the reason why it is called as such. Yan confirms that he is aware of the reason, and states that the hall was named after the surname of the first patriarch and one of 8 heroes of the Two-Way War, Duke Quitros Han Siegfried. The sole duke family in Kyrus, Siegfried. Despite possessing great power, they stayed loyal to the royal family for as long as 500 years, with a single-minded commitment to defend the territory of Cisphanian. It turns out, our hero was quite a huge fan of the story when he first heard it back in Secretia. Opening this topic, the servant got an idea about the person who our hero is wanting to meet. And with a huge burst of laughter, that person arrives. It is none other than Duke Slammen Han Siegfried, the descendant of the first patriarch. He is a man with a dominating physique, masculine facial structure, and golden brown hair. Truly a man that stands out among the rest. Kalian, as a knight himself in his previous life, is fond of people with long-standing loyalty. Then, the idea of testing out the abilities of the Duke came to his mind. He lets out a bit of his aura, checking if the Duke will sense the faint energy. And without delay, Slammen's eyes widened immediately as the energy passed by him. He quickly turns around to the direction of our hero, indicating that he was able to accurately pinpoint the origin of the energy. His gaze is locked upon Kalian, observing our hero's every move while contemplating what the prince is trying to achieve. The result of this little test is satisfactory for our hero. He only let out a tiny bit of flow, and the Duke immediately found him out. Yan caught wind of the Duke's stare as well, but since he doesn't know what our hero just did, he took the situation as the Duke merely showing interest in the third prince. Well, Slammen is one of the 5 sword masters of the continent after all. There is no way he wouldn't pick up on our hero's little game. Kalian is grateful that the Duke has become aware of his presence, but he claims that it is a bit too early for them to meet. He turns around and takes his leave, informing his servant to act like he didn't notice anything. As his cape fades away out of sight, the Duke is still staring intently at him from a distance. Finally, it was now time for the king to make his appearance in front of the guests. He shows his gratitude to everyone who has come to celebrate this special occasion with them, as he raises his glass of wine and tells them to enjoy the rest of the night. Meanwhile, our hero and his attendant make a dramatic escape from one of the windows, sliding down a rope that leads outside. Raven, his steed, is patiently waiting for his master. Kalian pats its head and compliments it for being smart and gentle. This statement was immediately refuted by Yeno, saying that the horse only acts like that around the prince. They take a stroll in the castle grounds, heading towards the front gate while making casual talk with each other. And on the front gate, the entrance is blocked by 2 spears of the soldiers, denying the entrance of one particular person. Our hero arrives, while the knights are persuading the unknown guest to leave. When he sees the man he had been waiting to meet the most, Kalian can't help but sprout a smile. It is none other than the Grand Mage himself, Ellen Manisol. And just like what happened in the past, he is having trouble getting in, as the guards refuse to acknowledge his identity. The guards are not oblivious about the greatness of the famous Ellen Manisol, but they insist that one still requires an invitation in order to be granted entrance. The Grand Mage chuckles, and states that he didn't know that Kairos differentiates their guests' class by their appearance. Our hero is surprised by Ellen's response. It seems that the Grand Mage is nitpicking the guards on purpose, as if he is trying to find a reason not to enter the kingdom. And without further discussion, Ellen turns his horse around, stating that he will then take his leave. Our hero can't let this golden opportunity pass him by, but Ian tells him not to act on impulse, for it is the king's order not to allow anyone outside during the duration of the festival. Still, seeing the Grand Mage get further away, Kalian has no choice but to disobey. At this rate, he will lose his chance to meet with Ellen. So, without further ado, he tells his attendant to do anything he can to stop the soldiers, and proceeds to gallop and chase after the mage. Kalian hurriedly went after the guests. The guards plead with the prince to stop his horse, but our hero shows no signs of halting his advance. He ran through the wall of soldiers, causing a major panic in their ranks. They immediately inform the troops to prepare the horses and chase after the prince. Seeing this, Ian doesn't know how to react. But his master's words are absolute, and he was instructed to do everything in his power to stop the soldiers from following him. So, he bites his lips to regain his composure. Ian takes pride in being the prince's attendant, and he swore to protect him by any means necessary. With great resolve, the attendant stops the advancing soldiers with authority, saying that Duke Siegfried has allowed the third prince Kalian to leave. But of course, the soldiers wouldn't immediately believe such claims. Ian removes the tie of his hair, and reveals a shocking revelation, which took me by surprise as well. He states that his name is Soroyan Siegfried, and also declares that he is the eldest son of Duke Siegfried. Fast forward after the whole shocking revelation, we hear a loud burst of laughter from a distance. Then we see the attendant's face, thoroughly drenched in red from embarrassment. He is talking to his father, Duke Slammen Siegfried, who finds the whole situation to be comical. Tears began dropping from his eyes from too much laughter, as he says that he can't believe that his son would do something this clever. He rubs Ian's head, complimenting him for leaving the family to raise a little kid. The Duke tells his son that what he did was a good decision, but the servant is worried that this might tarnish the relationship of the Duke and the King. Slayman just laughed it off though, saying that the King won't even ask about it, because he thinks too much to be bothered by such an event. He explains that if the prince just happened to get help from their family, the King will be put in a position where he is on alert about the Siegfried family's goodwill. If there is a point where the Duke is seen to be taking the side of the third prince, the King will most definitely find fault in that. So, to avoid unnecessary commotion, the Duke concludes that this incident will probably just be buried, as if nothing ever happened, and no one would bother finding out why the prince had left in the first place. The setting then switches to the peaceful town circle, where we find our hero finally able to catch up to the mage. Ellen was the first one to break the silence, saying that it doesn't seem like the prince is here to criticize him for not having an invitation. He gets to the point, and asks why he was followed by the third prince of the Kyrus kingdom. Kalian was dumbfounded to see the youthful appearance of the Grand Mage. He indeed heard that if one reaches the seventh circle, one's aging regresses, but it is still shocking to see it firsthand. Our hero tells him that it is late, it would be hard for him to find a place to stay. But in response, Ellen states that he tried opening a closed door, but the threshold proved to be too high. Seems like the mage is getting philosophical with our prince. Kalian fires back with a smile, stating that he is saying this because Ellen went to a closed door when another door was already open for him. In the back of his mind, he really wants to ask why the esteemed mage, who was given a proper invitation, decided to go nitpicking with the guards. He goes on saying that he was busy blocking the wind, and forgot to clean the dirt on the threshold, implying that he wasn't able to inform the guards beforehand. Ellen Manisel is quite surprised by our hero's behavior towards him. The prince is not apologizing for the inconvenience, rather, he is criticizing him. Ellen can't help but think if the prince is just honest or simply shameless. The Grand Mage finds this whole situation so interesting, that he can't help but smile. He states that when he first saw the third prince, his eyes didn't seem to give off the gaze of a teenager. And this is when he noticed something on our hero that alarmed him. He quickly grabs a hold of Kalian, bewildering the young prince. Red aura started seeping out from our hero's body, as if the mage was absorbing it out of him. Suddenly, an agonizing pain strikes our hero's heart. It was so unbearable, that he felt like his heart was being forcefully squished, and he grits his teeth really hard in an attempt to endure that pain. Kalian felt Ellen's mana flowing inside him, and it seems like the Grand Mage instantly noticed the problem with our hero's body. Then out of nowhere, a sudden bolt of lightning came in between the two, startling their horses. They resumed their metaphoric talk between each other, with Ellen saying that even with doors shut, wind cannot be completely blocked. Kalian is yet again amazed by the Grand Mage Ellen. In just a few exchanges of words, he was already able to notice the state of his body. Now that everything is laid bare, there's no point in tiptoeing with their words. Our hero comes clean and goes straight to the point, confessing that from a certain point, he could not use mana. But that wasn't all that the Grand Mage has noticed, and it seems like our hero is unaware that the real problem lies somewhere else. The Kyrus treat mages poorly despite being descendants of dragons. The great mage came to such a family on his own, and his intention was to make a fool out of them for losing him from right under their noses. However, with the appearance of this peculiar young prince who is getting in his way, it makes him wonder if this is the work of fate. Ellen asks the prince's reasons for wanting to meet him. Kalian contemplates for a bit. He knows that if he tells even a single lie, the mage will know, and he might end up losing the chance of a lifetime. With his resolve gathered, he gets off his horse, and politely states that he would like to inherit Manisel's name, and that he believes that his life will soon be at great risk. After all, it is not that our hero isn't aware of his situation. He is a prince who is an outcast and hated by all, and someone who is surrounded by great many enemies. And out of nowhere, the mage casts a field magic that silences the surrounding. Ellen casts a wide-range spell without even uttering a single word, truly a feat that only a seventh circle magician is capable of. Now that they are isolated, Ellen went straight to the point, and asks our hero if what he wants is to simply stop the assassination from happening, or if he is trying to get rid of the root cause. Kalian is glad that the great magician is quick on the uptake, and to not be too greedy, he tells him that for now, he just wants to prevent it from happening. Ellen was taken by surprise with his answer, but our hero continues, saying that he ultimately wants to eliminate the source of the problem. He boldly declares that he would even gladly take the throne in the process if that's the only way to get what he wants. The Grand Mage was amused by our hero's statement. Who in their right mind would put claiming the throne as a mere option for one's final goal? He wonders what kind of grand goal he has with his frail and dying body of his. This is truly an interesting turn of event. Maybe it is indeed fate that brought them together. The prince who takes after Sisyphonian, a prince who needs him, the Grand Mage, for his goal. This is all becoming too interesting for Ellen. With all said and done, our hero has gained the favor of the esteemed mage. Ellen asks him to give him an invitation once again. In that instant, Kalian knelt to the ground, and with all due respect, he calls Ellen his mentor and greets him. To make it official, Ellen Manisil declares that he accepts His Highness' invitation, with the intention of saving the third prince. Meanwhile, back in the palace, we see our favorite attendant, Yan, asking his father if he is sure that no one knows his real identity in the palace. Slayman informs him that he made sure that he took care of it, so there is no need to worry. Yan was concerned that if the truth was exposed, he wouldn't be able to stay by the prince's side. The Duke jokingly states that Yan might be his son, but he doesn't seem royal at all. Suddenly, Yan's mood turns serious as he asked about the situation of Li. Slayman informs him that he has been doing great in the position of the lower family head that our favorite servant has abandoned. He stands up and begins to stretch, while saying that if Yan has lost interest in playing servant, he could always come back to their family at any time. But knowing his son, he doesn't expect that to happen soon, so he bids him farewell for the time being. Yan, on the other hand, refutes his statement. With a disheartened expression, he says that they will be seeing each other in 3 months. With what his words are implying, the Duke asks him if he is planning on giving up his position as the third prince's servant. Slayman asks what is his reason for even considering such action, and was informed that His Highness will be 15 soon, meaning that his coming of age will arrive as well. Hearing this weak argument, the Duke can't help but frown at his son. He asks him if he is aware of the nickname the Siegfried family is known as. Turns out, they are known as the Elephant of Kyrus. For a long time, they have never coveted the throne. But that doesn't mean that they don't possess the power to do so. No, in fact, they could easily do so if they want to. They are known as the king of animals, whom even beasts like tigers and lions cannot touch. Ian is still quite confused at what his father is trying to imply. So, to make it simple, he grabs his son and tells him that their name, Siegfried, which he discarded, is a force to be reckoned with. And like a doting father, he happily tells his son to do whatever he wants to do, and stop worrying about everything. The sweet father and son reunion continued for quite some time, until finally, the time to put on an act has come once again. Ian goes back to being the third prince's servant, and addresses his father as Duke Siegfried. But the doting father won't allow such weird behavior from his own son and tells him to bugger off immediately. With all said and done, Ian pays his respect to the Duke and takes his leave. Slayman chuckles at how stubborn his son is, and says that he really has the blood of a Siegfried. He then contemplates his encounter with the third prince. He wonders when did such a failure of a prince grow so much to reach such a level. Slayman sighs and wonders what the prince is thinking in his mysterious mind. We then get to witness the glamorous exterior of the castle. The sun shines brightly, highlighting the beauty of the golden outline of the castle. The sound of wheels rolling on concrete is heard as a mysterious carriage passes by the busy street. People start gossiping with each other at the sight of a particular crest that is embedded on the carriage. On the doors of the majestic carriage, carved is the symbol with 7 red flowers and a cane. Seems like this crest is infamous, and the crowd can't stop gossiping about it with a hint of animosity. They ask why this certain person is visiting Kyrus now of all times. They also talk about the rumors that this man's son was poisoned. Out of the majestic carriage is the one and only Ellen Manisil. Looking as elegant as ever, Ellen chuckles as he was reminded of what has transpired with his meeting with the third prince. We get a flashback on what happened. We see our adorable prince instructing his master to do something at exactly 9:30 in the morning. He says that he needs to come through the open door at that time. Ellen Manisil wonders if his disciple is planning on competing with the Bryson family, and if so, he says that it won't be that easy. Kalian was waiting for the time to show his master off to the nobles and shake the game up. The butler and his subordinates warmly welcome the unexpected arrival of the Grand Mage, Ellen Manisil. A cup of tea signals the start of the conversation between the Grand Mage and His Highness, the King. The expression on the King's face implies that the mage said something he didn't expect coming. It turns out, the Ellen is inquiring the King for a place where he could stay inside Kyrus's, the kingdom's capital, in order to compete with Celes, the queen who holds almost half of the power of the kingdom. King is thinking that he needs a power like Ellen Manhwa, but he never imagined the mage coming to him by his own volition. He can't help but be suspicious with him. Ellen Manhwa activated his metaphorical way of speaking once again, and he says to the king that he has met a black cat with red eyes in the plaza. The king thought of it as a literal cat, which made him confused. The mage continues, stating that the cat was quite intelligent, so he decided that he should teach it a few things, but the problem is that he doesn't have a place to stay. His Majesty is gradually catching on to what he is really talking about, and inquires what the Grand Mage will be teaching it. And with a smile on his face, he casually says that he intends to show him the way of magic. Not only that, he is also planning on making an environment that the cat will like. If he wants to accomplish such a goal, he states that he needs to help the owner of the house, and clean up the house a bit while he is at it. The king is shocked with what he just heard. Does this imply that the mage is personally volunteering to be of use to him just to help this black cat? He asks the mage if he'll really be able to do that. Alan confidently declares that he has decided to take Prince Kalian as his disciple, and not even the likes of Bryson, the king, can stop him. He won't be able to only teach the prince magic all day long, so if this boardmaster decides to help his highness, no one can stop him. Although the mage is the one to speak these words, it was actually the prince's thought when he sent him the invitation. The king clenches his fist to the fact that his son is already one step ahead of him, but who can decline the assistance of such an esteemed magician such as Alan Manhwa? The king gets up and tells him that he will be providing him a place to stay. He adds that the royal family is already a mess as it is, so it can't get any worse. The mage chuckles at the king's remark. His Majesty won't end the conversation without hearing some reason though. He states that he heard that his son is not special, so why would someone of Alan's caliber would even bother to help him? The Grand Magician is absolutely baffled by the king's statement. What does he mean by that? Even the third prince's health condition is uselessly special. It is to the point where it is hard to find anything normal in him. The king continues his dialogue, saying that he heard as well that the prince has a lot of fears, so he can't imagine Kalian, who was apparently afraid of horses, chased after the mage on his own. Alan notices something with the king's speech pattern. Since earlier, all he has been talking about are the things that he heard about the prince, and did not utter one word about his own observation. The mage can't help but interrupt the king, for he is obviously not interested in the least bit about his own son. He politely asks him if he even knows the prince's height. This curious query of the mage warranted a moment of silence between the two, awkwardly staring at each other. Alan tries his best to hide his disgust towards the king, as he thought, His Majesty doesn't even know such a simple fact. He goes on saying that at times, attention can be a poison and indifference can be a remedy. However, he knows full well that being busy is just an excuse to be as ignorant as the king. Naturally, some tension started to rise up between the two. The failure of a father was the first one to break the silence. He states that he will take Alan's current attitude of not knowing his place to be his concern as Kalian's teacher. He explains that it might be ridiculous for him to explain this, but he says that he cherishes the princes quite enough. He grabs the handle of the door, while saying that his feeling towards that child, Kalian, is already too precious for him. The mage has heard enough of the king's reasons, and casts a barrier spell with a flick of his finger. He prompts the king to stop talking and take a look for himself. His Majesty is growing anxious with the mage's attitude. He asks him how he was able to cast magic inside the royal palace. But Alan has no interest in answering his question. He goes on informing the king about the third prince's condition. He says that his lips are dry, and he is frequently breathless. His skin has a bluish tinge to it, and his fingernails look purplish underneath. Even his clothes were clearly fixed in a hurry. Considering the fact that his clothes were prepared a month ago, Kalian must have lost a lot of weight in the meantime. He tries standing up, unable to raise his body with his eyes closed. He feels dizzy. The king can't believe what he is witnessing right now. To think that one of his sons is in this condition, it is an absolute surprise to him. Alan finishes by stating that if the king keeps on being a bystander like this, he will lose it all. The scenery switches to the grand hall of the palace, where we find Yen standing at the entrance of a room while a mage approaches him. While holding a tray of tea set, the mage states that it is almost noon, yet the prince still hasn't had his morning tea. Yen smiles and informs the maid that he will take it from here. He will take care in case the prince coughs. The attendant enters our hero's room, where we see Kalian lying in bed, and not one servant except for Yen is present. Our hero is obviously in pain as seen by the expression on his face while lying down in bed. Yen can't help but think if this is caused by the prince overexerting himself last night when he went to chase after the mage. A servant meekly bows his head and softly utters the prince's name out of concern, when suddenly, the mage appeared right behind him. It takes Yen a couple of seconds to process what is happening, and when the shock finally catches up to him, he screams from sheer surprise at the mage's sudden appearance. The servant halts the grand mage from advancing any further, stating that he is being discourteous right now. The mage says that he was informed that outsiders can't enter the chamber without permission, so he had to use other methods. The attendant asks him if he used teleportation to get in since he wasn't able to get permission to come inside. Ellen corrects him that it is more of a warp than teleportation, then proceeds to boast about his proficiency in magic. Yen isn't interested in his magical abilities, though he states that the prince is currently resting. Ellen gets up close and personal with the attendant, saying that he doesn't have to act like he doesn't know him. He continues by saying that Yen came to Reborn a few years ago. Did he really think that the mage wouldn't recognize him just because he grew up? Ellen then proceeds to call the attendant baby elephant, which was the word of his beloved father, Slayman Siegfried. The duke said that he looks elegant so no one would be able to recognize him as a member of the Siegfried family, but the mage was able to do so in an instant. The bickering of the two is halted by the awakening of our hero, who asks his attendant how long he was asleep for. But before answering His Highness' question, he introduces the guest first. Still groggy and dizzy, it takes our hero a moment to recognize his teacher. Ellen hands him a red pouch with mysterious content. As our hero opens it, shiny silver spheres roll out of the pouch. The mage instructs our hero to eat one daily without ever forgetting. He realizes that it is medicine for his condition. Manhwa informs him that he is facing two issues right now. The first one is that Kalian cannot manage his mana. And the second is that his body is thinning extremely rapidly. Both of these are true and are very apparent from our hero's physique. Kalian can't help but be amazed. He hasn't even said anything, yet the mage always seems to see through what's going on with him. With a concerned gaze, the mage confirms if our hero has the power of the blessing, which our hero confirms. The blessing gives him power for healing ability and an affinity for magic. Although, it feels to him like even that healing power is somehow now gone. He asks his master if he has problems with his heart. Ellen answers him with a question, asking if he has never thought of the two issues as a strange combination. The blend of healing powers and magic. Kalian wonders, perhaps the power of the blessing strengthened his heart. After all, the origin of both mana and life is the heart. His master confirms that he is indeed correct. The power of the blessing does strengthen the heart, but the prince's power of blessing didn't disappear. Neither did his heart malfunction, nor his mana get blocked. But if none of that is the cause of his pain, our hero inquires what might be wrong with his body. To answer him, Ellen gives him something to think about. What if Sisfanian's blessing hasn't disappeared, but is just being used to its limit somewhere else? The power of the blessing is being affected by something, such that it can't even heal the tiniest wounds, just like his knife cut from before. Our hero's complexion turns pale, as the possibility of him being poisoned occurs in his mind. Naturally, Kalian agitatedly asks his master if his current condition is caused by a poison. And his master states that if it weren't for the blessing, our hero would already be dead by now. Healing such a deadly poison put a strain on his heart, and the healing power has its limit. On top of that, our hero tried to use mana, and that is why his heart rejected it. To put it simply, our hero's blessing, the power of healing, which should have been a passive skill only to be activated when needed, is always active to heal his body from the poison, hence it is always consuming mana. So, whenever he tries to use mana for a spell, his body would automatically reject it. Originally, Kalian was assassinated, but this time, our hero is already poisoned before he even possessed the body. This kind of scheme is not something that was planned shortly before, it was carried out with precision and timing. He bites his lips really hard out of pity for the poor prince. I mean, why the fuck did they have to hang the child that was going to die anyway? His anger towards the perpetrators was sensed by his master, and it shocked him to see that much murderous intent from a child. It is not the kind of bloodthirst a 14-year-old boy can possess. With a glare, our hero asks Alan if the pills that he just gave are the antidote. The mage explains that the medicine was made in a rush, but he can guarantee that it will work. Kalian began contemplating about the situation. Then something weird popped up in his mind. He asked his master, hypothetically, what if he said that he would take both the poison and the antidote together? This alerted the mage. What kind of nonsense was the prince suggesting? Even if he took the antidote, if he also took the poison with it, the medicine would only slow down its effects. But our hero said that it would be good enough. Alan fought the urge to ask if His Highness truly intended to do what he just said. Turns out, our hero already had an inkling of who the culprit really was. He explained that the source of the poison was most likely from the tea he drinks every morning. Kalian drinks it in front of everyone, so it is easy to monitor if he has taken it. Also, no one is taking the tea with him, so the culprit must have concluded that it was the safest method. The original Kalian must have noticed the poison in the tea and refrained from drinking it. That might be the reason why the culprit resorted to assassinating him. The situation changed after he possessed the body. He didn't know what method they might use to try and kill him anymore this time. So, at the very least, he surmised that he needed to keep this knowledge a secret, so that the perpetrators wouldn't take drastic actions. The Grand Mage asked him if that was the only reason why he would risk taking the poison still. In reality, Kalian was trying to protect the servants as well from taking the heat if he stopped drinking his morning tea. The culprit had been using this method regularly. He was sure that implies they were certain they wouldn't be caught. Alan, on the other hand, commented that he needed not to worry about his attendant, since the baby elephant would be just fine. Left with no choice, the Grand Mage agreed to our hero's reasoning, and asked him what his course of action would be. It was then he remembered the words of his father when he was still the man named Bern. His father would always drill it into his mind that in order to take someone else's trump card, he needed to offer something of himself first. With his plan arranged, he invited his master to escort him outside the palace tomorrow evening. The setting switched to a nice morning in the palace, when suddenly, doors flew open, followed by a panicked voice waking Prince Planch up. The attendant desperately tried to wake up the second prince to inform him that Her Majesty has arrived. But he was too late, the queen has already made her appearance, ready to scold her naughty son. She reprimanded the prince for being too late to prepare for the afternoon schedules. Despite the angry tone of his mother, the notorious prince just lazily sat up on his bed, as if saying that he is too sleepy for this. Turns out, Planch had been drinking alcohol despite being banned from doing so after the commotion with the square ceremony. He casually grabbed a glass of water and asked his mother to state her business so she could leave. With a heavy heart, she told her son that mentor, and it is not just any mentor, but the Seventh Circle Mage, Ellen Manisel. She stated that all the aristocrats were already wavering. Despite his mother's panicking tone, Planch showed disinterest in the topic, thinking that it didn't concern him. The queen had enough. Threateningly, she told the spoiled prince to make sure all the effort she has invested in him doesn't go to waste, then prompted him to get ready immediately. Before leaving, she informed him that there will be many eyes watching him today, so he better not disappoint. The sound of a glass shattering echoed through the whole room, as the second prince threw a fit. He broke the glass with his hand, injuring himself in the process, but the wound in his heart was deeper than the cuts. He cursed angrily as he remembered the face of our hero, Kalian. The setting took us to the lively streets of the kingdom, where people were cheering for their king's birthday, while the royal family paraded the street. The three princes were present as well, riding their respective steeds. Citizens were elated to witness all the princes come out. We saw our hero diligently waving to his subjects, exhibiting the proper attitude of a royal. Despite his lively smile, Yan couldn't help but be worried about his health condition, but said that it is still a relief that his complexion has become better than yesterday. With a nonchalant smile, Kalian said that it is naturally so, for he has rested well. The antidote that Ellen gave him is proving its effectivity. It is definitely easier for him to breathe now and the pain in his heart has decreased. Still concerned about his well-being, Yan grumbled at today's plan as they have too many activities to do. Kalian stated that he is happy to meet the subjects in good condition, that alone is enough for him. Suddenly, he noticed something or someone peculiar among the crowd. Two mysterious white-haired duos cloaked with robes were hiding in the alley. A flashback from his previous life occurred to him, the memories of the fateful day when Ciri sacrificed himself for Bern. He recognized it right away that the man is definitely Ciri, but he had no idea what would be the reason for such a night of secretion to be present here in Kairos. Suddenly, the third prince's steed started acting up, refusing to go straight. It seemed like Raven, the horse, was curious about the cloaked man as well. Kalian calmed Raven, saying that this is not the time for them to meet. In the back of his mind, Kalian swore that he will definitely find Ciri again. Then, we were greeted by Malfer Paloon, the Paloon Emporium's owner. This man was the one assigned to prepare the horseback riding show, instead of the Bryson family. Thanks to that, our hero got swept away in a useless war of nerves with the queen, Nonetheless, it didn't concern him any longer. If his memory served him right, Randall would get hurt in this horseback riding show, resulting in Baron Paloon getting his head hung. The host politely led the royal family to their assigned room. He had prepared special seats for them, a place where they could see everything that was happening in the show. He took a look at one particular chandelier and immediately knew that it would be the one to hurt the first prince. He found it odd to be a mere accident. At an event that the king himself was attending, wouldn't the knights have checked something as big as the chandelier? Add that to the fact that the knights in charge of security were the Bryson family's Pable Knight Corps. He remembered the obnoxious knight commander as he looked at the soldiers, a memory he would rather forget. Then, something popped up in his playful mind, thinking if he would give Paloon an opportunity to live. He whispered to the host that he felt uneasy about the chandelier above his head, then took his leave. The thumps of horses galloping around were heard in the whole arena. The stadium was jam-packed with people, enjoying the special show. One particular man was shaking from excitement. He couldn't believe that such a day would come in his life. It was none other than Baron Paloon, thrilled by the fact that he was currently sitting beside His Majesty, the King. While he was fidgeting around from excitement, he caught a glimpse of the third prince, and was immediately reminded of his words. Anxiety began to fill his head, wondering if he had properly checked the ceiling. For his sake, this fidgety baron should heed our heroes for warning. Will he be able to detect the chandelier in time? How will our hero deal with the issue of poison in his daily tea? Who is the true perpetrator for Kalian's death? And what kind of teachings will the Grand Mage be able to impose on our hero? Stay tuned to find out in the next episode. Until next time.